time, so let's just skip past that, please. We're going to talk to BitGet. Cloud Tech cannot make it. Rob was going to be here. It was going to be some really cool thing, but that's okay. I'll talk to that. Some price action stuff. We've got Igor here from Magnet Capital and some international perspectives and a whole ton of networking. So after this, we're going to go down to Hotel CBD. And we'll do some more drinks there, and there might be some other people partying around as well. So let's get to the next one. Updates, this is how we always start. What's been happening around the nation? If we go to the next, and you can see our lovely sponsors there at the bottom. Chris? It's a bit of a, okay, so first of all, we've got BitGet as a sponsor, so thank you so much for joining us, Debbie, and we're going to be dialing in. Debbie over here at the front, put your hand up. Yeah, all the BitGet stuff. Thank you. There you go. Show the love, guys. So we're very happy to have them on as sponsors. If anyone else wants to sponsor, we will always listen. So come on in. There's a lot of great things happening in the community, so more to come on that. Let's get to the next because we'll hear from BitGet soon. The Last Oz DeFi event. You can see Nick, who's not here today, but he's usually wearing his coach's outfit. He's doing the he Michael Jackson thing there. I think you guys can see that. And some amazing people from the last meetup. So that was great. We do these every month in Sydney. We're doing 40 events just this year. So 10 events minimum in 4 of the major cities and a few other events in Adelaide, Newcastle, Canberra. So it's going to be tiring, but we'll figure out a way. Chris, next one, please. Melbourne, we were at RMIT, so Nick went down there for that, so an amazing event with Stables, and we had the RMIT crew and a few others present, so that was really cool. Over to the next one, Perth had their event. They've actually got an event on tomorrow, so there's the WA Web3 event, and we're doing the breakfast as part of that, and then next month we're going to do something for the halving. So there's a lot of good stuff going on in Perth. So if you're traveling around the country, just let us know because we might be able to at least put you in touch with good people, or you might be able to get to an event. Next, Adelaide. A bit smaller. There was only 17 people at this one, but that's a really good turnout for Adelaide. Smaller city, a bit quieter and stuff, but it's growing. We started off with 15 people in our first one, right? Chris was there, Lee was there, there was a few others. So, you know, they all, from little things, big things, something. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Sunshine Coast, I was there. It looks like less people there for that, but there was a lot more that just didn't want to be on camera. They're a bit more anon over there, so they don't want to, you know, I'm like, okay, let's talk about some stuff. We've got it on camera. It's like, okay, fine. Turn the camera off. Let's all talk about our investments. So we did that, so that was fun. But they've got a really cool NFT gallery over there called Meta Collect in the Sunshine Coast. We'll be in Brisbane next week, so if anyone's traveling, hit us up. So let's go to the next one. Blockchain Australia had a policy forum last month. This week is Policy Week by Blockchain APAC, and that's why we've got more of the international flavor of guests here, which is amazing. And so, you know, Policy Forum that culminated in us being able to take some basically recommendations over to Parliament because they're in the middle of actually writing the rules and what the regulations will be for crypto. So this is a very important time to actually push for this industry to not have stifling innovation, but to have stuff that actually opens up for innovation. So next, please. Oh, yep, press that. So one of the things that we're doing here, because I wear another hat, and we do AI stuff. So we've got an AI tool that we built. So this is a bit of a self-plug, I apologize. But when I run this thing here, we feed in the transcripts. So all of this is recorded thanks to the amazing camera action going on at the back. And through the AI tool, the transcript that comes out of it, we've got something where it actually writes about, like, so these are different AI agents. So if you haven't gotten onto the AI bandwagon, it was all the chat GPT back and forth, like tennis match, you know, you hit it over, you get it back and forth. The next thing that's happening is all this agent stuff where you set agents to actually do stuff. In this case, write a LinkedIn post, do some research about what's going on from the meetup transcripts. We also help Blockchain Australia with the transcripts from their policy talks. And that's how we were able to quickly write some policy recommendations to go to government. But as you can see here, the AI agents just work behind the scenes. There's some other cool stuff that we're doing, but we're really going to be powering more with AI, these meetups, and sharing that so that if you missed out, you'd be able to sign up to a tool and you can go through all the past history. We're just collecting it all. We've had a lot of meetups here, so there's a lot of, you know, just do this, like, right, tell me everything that was good, ignore Mark, and, you know, you'll get some really good stuff there. So we'll go to the next thing. Chris, oh. We're doing it again. AI is so good, it wants to play it again. So some of the interesting things that came out from the last meetup that we did here in Sydney, we talked about regulation and collaboration. We talked about community growth and events, and people coming back into the space because the markets have turned, which is really good. I think the quote was about 4% of the market is now insto, which may be good and bad for some people that don't like that kind of thing. But the thing that's interesting is that there's a lot more mainstream folks coming in. There's a lot more support. So it's not just this Wild West where if you lose your keys, you forgot your password and stuff, there's going to be more that help support consumers. So watch out for that. Tech integration, we spoke about that. Lee was on stage as well talking about Abu Dhabi and the interesting things being seen over there. So let's go to the next, and then I think we're coming up soon. Okay, presentations. Let's get to that next slide, Chris. And okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to actually be dialing someone in. So we're just going to switch over for a little bit at the back. Can I just ask while I've got you here, we had the international flavor put their hands up. Who's new? Who is it their first time coming to one of these events? Wow, okay, amazing. Almost rivaling the internationals. We'll do a little tug of war game later on. And if you're an international and new to this event, I don't know, maybe stand in the middle or something. Chris, good? He's not on yet? Okay. All right. So who knows some good crypto jokes? Because I don't. No, I'm just joking. But what we're going to do, so these meetups, the way that they all run really is like that networking. The pizzas are usually hit earlier. So apologies for that. We got rugged there. That was my fault. But we do an hour and a half of talks or so, and then we do like more networking. So what meme coins? There's this thing called Doggy. No, I don't have any. I've got, in all honesty, I've got ETH, I've got USDC, sorry. I did have a little bit of things like Filecoin before. I had Chainlink. I know, I'm so sorry. I'm disappointingly at the front here. But yeah, it's interesting seeing all of this stuff start to come back because, oh, there we go. Oh, okay, cool. But yeah, it's interesting seeing all this stuff come back because the thesis for a lot of these was like, well, what's the point? Is there anything like really good out of it? Are we just doing it for the hype, or is there actually something behind it? And I think that we've seen a lot more plays out there that there's actually something interesting behind them. They're actually building something, whether it's in film and TV, for example. We've met a few projects doing that, or it's with real world assets. Who's heard of real world asset tokenization? Few of you? Okay, very good. I mean, I'm even getting friends that used to work in the space that have left and they're like, Mark, what's going on in RWAs? I want to come back in. So I think you're going to start seeing more people coming in here, which is going to be really good. And yeah, we'll just see. What's that, Chris? We just all good? Or do you want to, you know what? I can play Alvin. I can just pretend and answer on behalf of. Or I can interview you. We should. So we'll talk this part. We're going to talk more about BitGet Wallet, and we'll see if we can get the guy online. This is the first time, by the way, that we've tried to dial in someone from overseas in Singapore. This is also live streaming. So if you go to YouTube, if you haven't already followed us on YouTube, there's Australian DeFi Association. So you guys can. Yeah. We could get a few people. We've got a few spokespeople. I mean, hands up if you're from BitGet here. No, hands up higher. Come on, sir. There we go. There we go. We could bring that up. That's fine. But yeah, look, put it this way. So we were in Canberra. Jason, where are you? Where's Jason? There he is. So Jason and I were in Canberra. Was that yesterday? When you work through the night, though, that feels like another day. So, I wasn't too sure. But no, we did some good stuff down there. Do you want to check with Chris? Yeah. So we were down there delivering. So Blockchain Australia, from their policy forum, they actually pulled together some recommendations that basically were delivered to government. So we had ministers, Minister Bragg there. There was Dai Lee from I think Cume, she was. Oh, there we go. All good? You want to come up here? Test. Elvin, can you hear us?
Loud and clear. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, cool. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm Debbie from BitGet. When I spoke to Mark about, how can we support Oz DeFi in, really getting close to all of the communities within Australia, we decided to sponsor the team with their national events, and then start learning about what users are wanting, whether they are starting up their own projects or whether they are traders. So this is kind of our view of learning more about this industry, or learning more about the market needs over here. Um, and then we were like, okay, Oz DeFi, what can we talk about? What's some of the content that some of the other meetups have discussed? They've discussed, stable coins, they've discussed policies, and trading. So I thought for this round, we'd interview our new COO of BitGet Wallet, Elvin Khan, and then just really pick his brain and talk about, what we're doing in DeFi as well as CeFi at BitGet. So welcome, Elvin.
Hey guys. Hey Debbie.
So as I mentioned, Alvin's recently joined us as COO. So Alvin, maybe if I could just get you to tell a little bit about yourself and how you got into crypto.
Sure. And privileged to be the first person dialing in for this event. Very nice to meet all of you. It's been years since I've been, I think all you guys in Sydney, right? I have
Yeah.
not been there for years. Yeah, hopefully I'll get to join you in person next time. So very quickly on myself. Well, first and foremost, I'm a dad. If you can see this like really cheesy t-shirt here. One of those who never tell good dad jokes. Have a daughter and a son. And I think most of my career I've been in Web 2. I was at LinkedIn for 9 years, doing a mix of sales and then data analytics. So my first kind of stint in Web 3 was actually at Binance, handling data analytics operations. And that was then, I really got into the whole world of Web 3, where people are going, how liquidity flows, and so on. Since then, I've always been more involved on the blockchain side of stuff. At Binance, I was mostly involved in BNB chain ecosystem development. Was it another L1 after that called Say, if you're familiar with it. And then very recently joined Big Get Wallet. Yep, so happy to be here.
Great. And can you tell us a little bit more about what you're going to be doing at BitGet Wallet, and maybe also what BitGet Wallet is?
Sure. So I'm handling everything that's non-tech, so everything that's growth related at Big Get Wallet. Big Get Wallet, if you're familiar with other self-custodial wallets like MetaMask, Trust, and so on, we're pretty much a wallet similar to them, but way much more, which I'll talk about the features later. But essentially, with Big Get Wallet, you have self-custody of your keys. You're able to very easily on the mobile app, right, trade between different tokens, right? Most of the tokens that you can find on Ethereum, even on Solana, you're able to find it on the wallet itself. Where we pride our difference with the other wallets is number one, it's truly multi-chain. We're not just talking about all the chains in EVM. We are talking about all the chains in EVM plus Solana plus Cosmos and the others. So, and one of the reasons we're doing that is, for myself, like my first wallet was actually MetaMask, right? And when you have to start downloading all the other wallets for all the other ecosystems, it gets a little too much. So a lot of our mantra right here at Bigget Wallet is, how do we essentially simplify a very complex Web3 world into a single app for users to be involved in, get all the opportunities that are in Web3 in one single app.
I was at a event a couple of weeks ago at Upside Down in Melbourne, and the topic of wallets came up, and so they were talking about the risks of self custody wallets. Can you talk a little bit about some of those traditional, the risks that are known, so user error, that kind of thing? What are you doing at BitGet Wallet to kind of overcome that or break some of those myths, not myths,
Yeah.
but risks?
So security is definitely number one on our agenda, as always. And I think there are a few categories or different tiers that we think about security, right? And the first and foremost is on user education. A lot of this, if you call it hacks or whatever, is down to, again, user not really understanding what it means to self-custody, or users, just, I'm not sure how many of you but have heard these stories, but you see it on Twitter a lot, right? You wake up, you FOMO into to a token, and then you copy and paste the wrong contract address and so on. So I think we started user education, which we're working with different organizations around the world to make sure users understand all the risks that they're taking. The second is then on a lot of token screening and website screening. Most of the hacks, I would say more than 50% are down to like phishing attacks or keying in like the wrong contract addresses, or seeing other people kind of shoe a token but not realizing, there are risks like, this is a honeypot, an example. So what we do is we actually work with external security partners, Gold Plus and a few others. And what we do is then plug into the API. So when you're keying in the contract address, we tell you, hey, are there certain risks with this token, and alongside with the other websites as well. Not only that, we actually will also look at some of the more popular tokens, and we will assess and try to list them on the wallet itself. Because many people, get tricked in the sense where they see a popular token that's on Twitter, and then they try to copy and paste the contract address. Sometimes, it's the wrong one. Sometimes it's, scammers trying to scam you on Twitter, and you don't realize it. So we try to list all the ones that we know, so that you don't then copy and paste the wrong contract addresses in. And so that has always been one of our strengths, where users are conveniently able to find the tokens that they want without the risk of copying and pasting the wrong stuff. Then, and I think I would end off, there's so many things, right, with regards to like your swap contract, audits and so on, which we have. But the most important thing that differentiates again Big Wallet from the rest is the protection fund. So there is a $300 million protection fund, right? So if something happens, we actually activate the fund to kind of give back to the users and protect them.
Yeah. Can you go back on that? So on the, the secure, like the little alerts that come up around potentially suspicious addresses, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
Or how does that work?
Imagine, you're keying in a contract address, right? And then we detect that, out of, I don't know, 50 to 100 different parameters, we see that there are 3 risky parameters, and we would actually tell you that, hey, there is a certain level of risk to this token, and we would actually list out what the risks are.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one before. And so in terms of like other features with wallets, so I think we're now seeing it's beyond just storing, your crypto. Can you talk about some of the other features now that you've got on BitGet Wallet?
Yep. I think this is a long-age debate where there's one camp saying that I want a wallet to just be a wallet, right? But what we're seeing from the trends is people want more than a wallet. I mean, Web3 5 years ago versus now is so different, right? The kind of opportunities that you get is not just from like farming on the DEX and so on. It's a lot. If you look at, say, many years ago, then you just need a self-custodial wallet to store the assets. And then after that, swapping in the app itself became important. And then staking became important, right, with Lido and the rest. And so we are constantly looking at what opportunities are there in Web3. And some of these core functions that, more and more people are using, we try to bring them back into the app. So that it's easy for users, right, to access them within the app itself rather than going to, 100 different places to tap on 100 different opportunities. Since then, one thing that we've done quite well is, we have developed certain new features which we think we're ahead of the rest. For example, today, if you were to, do airdrop farming or do like questing and campaigns, so basically doing some tasks and interacting with the deck to get some of the tokens, there are 2 ways, right? So the current more common way is that you have to go to Galaxy or you go to the different dApps websites and do it. But then it often involves like desktop operations rather than just easily on the go on your mobile. And you have to trust the website and do, maneuver different things. So what we've done is we created a learning center within the app, right? So that we integrate like a lot of these opportunities. Easily there's about 3 or 4 a week into our app itself. And within, just a few minutes, very quickly in one single mobile app, right? And you can do it on the go, on the bus, in the car. You're able to complete this task and get the rewards. So that's one thing. And then earlier this year, all the craze, actually a lot of stuff happened since November, right? The craze about inscriptions, all the way to even now. And what we realized then is people want to get into the inscriptions game, but it's really complicated, right? If you're not familiar with it. First, where do you mint the inscriptions? What are the ranking boards of the different inscriptions and so on? And so what we've done again is then introduce this inscriptions feature called Get Scribe within the app. So you can make inscriptions within the app. You can trust which are the collections, that are legit, and then do it again within the same app. So you realize again and again, it's really about following what trend is happening right now, and then bringing some of the more common features to our users very conveniently within the app itself.
So the inscriptions, and then there's also an NFT marketplace. Yep.
There is, in fact, I think this was 3, 4 years ago. We were the first wallet with an NFT marketplace. Obviously, that's long ago, so now most wallets have it. But yes, we do introduce that quite a while back.
And what type of trends are you seeing with that marketplace at the moment?
With NFTs in general.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Australia is pretty heavy into NFTs. At least that's what I've heard.
Yes, I would say that. Is that true?
Yeah. So I mean, I've held NFTs for the last few years as well. I think in this current bull cycle, it's been a bit quiet, if I would say, other than Party Penguins and a few collections, right? And Cancer Trade, I think the rest has been pretty quiet. But I do think one is a lot of the NFTs, if you consider them NFTs on Bitcoin, right? With Gus Ordinals, that's been pretty hot. So that's one trend. So it's kind of moving into Bitcoin, where the assets and the liquidity has been since the boom of the inscriptions. The other one is I truly believe NFTs don't just equate to profile pictures, right? It equates to something larger. It's a token standard, right? It's just a non-fungible token standard, and that standard is required in new use cases for crypto, right? For example, you talk about DIDs, right? Like digital identities, that's important. If you talk about real-world assets, again, that is important. I would say NFTs and probably even evolutions of NFTs, because with real-world assets, when you start bringing, I don't know, property, watches, or other kind of assets in, you may require certain NFTs with different standards for metadata. So I think we would see a boom in NFTs again, but it will just come back in a very different way. And the last thing I would say is, I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but I've been tracking, like in our team itself, every morning we actually have a trending meeting of what's trending for the last 24 hours. I've been seeing a lot more movement in the GameFi sector over the last 2 to 3 weeks, right? I can't remember which chain, right? Just again launched was it 100 million fund for GameFi. We've been seeing that happen again and again for the last few weeks. So with GameFi and then again, NFTs will come back.
And so I was chatting to some people before the session started, and they were asking about the difference between BitGet and BitGet Wallet. Can you talk about like how we're different, but how we work together at the same time?
Well, firstly, it's pretty different, right? Apart from the brand name, we operate independently. After all, we're self-custodial wallets, so whatever that you store in BitGet Wallet, right, has really nothing to do with BitGet itself, right? You hold your own keys, and it has to remain that way because we operate in a decentralized, self-custodial manner, so it has to be that way. I would say, however, we try to maintain the links, right, so that again the BitGet Wallet users can get that value. For example, a lot of the resources. One example is if you want to, on-ramp your money, right? And we would actually use the P2P resources, right, or some of the OTC channels, which are from BitGet, so that again, it's easier because our team is pretty lean, right? Less than 100 people, and I think that's how wallet team should operate. And we focus a lot on security, so whatever resources we can actually get from a large group, right, without compromising on the security and decentralization, we actually do it today.
This might be a controversial question coming from a central exchange, but what do you think is the future for like central exchanges and then decentralized?
Oh, interesting questions. With BitGet centralized exchange in the floor as well. This is my personal belief. I think today there is still a very big hurdle, right, for people to cross into the Web3 world. And a large piece of that hurdle is again down to like OTC, P2P, basically on-off ramps. And so a lot of users who need an on-off ramp and are more used to, like, say stock brokerages for punting on stocks and so on, they will still go through decentralized exchange. But 5 years from now, my belief is that more people will actually come in directly into Web3 through self-custodial wallets than through centralized exchanges. Because again, most of the action is there, right? Apart from trading, most of the action that you get with Web3, there's so many trends we talk about, right? If you're a gamer and you want to buy NFTs for your game, do you really need to go through a centralized exchange? Maybe you just have a self-custodial wallet, right, where you store your weapons and your assets. We talk about AI, and one of the biggest use case for AI in blockchain, I think, is the need for decentralizing AI agents, right? The worry that people have about AI is that it's so powerful, right? And if it's in the hands of a central entity, right, you're worried because what kind of rules and how will they train the AI? And if I think it's required then in such a world where you have a lot of AI agents representing you or doing tasks for you, that you have a decentralized market so that it's, again, not centralized and not concentrated in one single entity. So when you think about all these things, then there is a lot of use cases where blockchain is coming to the real world. And again, then the need to access this Web3 market, can it be solved directly through a self-custodial wallet, right? I think in 5 years' time, that could be the case.
You think the user experience and design will be there within 5 years?
I certainly hope so. I mean, in general, those of you who do, like, I don't know, agro farming or use some of the DeFi protocols, I think it's fair to say UI, UX today is still pretty lacking.
Yeah.
Right. It is definitely faster on certain chains like Solana. That's why people love some of the UI, UX there. But in general, I mean, I came from LinkedIn, I came from the internet industry, so I would say it's still pretty much lacking. Like for Big Get Wallet, we focus a lot more on the mobile app experience. For a lot of the campaigns, we actually run it only on the mobile app because we believe that's again where everyone is, most of the time. And we don't want to take shortcuts to say like, hey, just download the browser extension and go to a website with simple features. Again, like I'm a big proponent of UI UX, and I think with talent coming in to blockchain more commonly nowadays, I do think the experience will improve. But it requires a lot of these web designers, UI UX designers to come in from the traditional or tech industries into the Web3 world.
Yeah, thanks. Alvin, we've got a question. I might just throw to the audience, okay?
Sure.
Hey, Alvin. I was wondering how BitGet makes money. How do you ensure the longevity of your business?
Yeah. I'm assuming you mean BitGet Wallet.
BitGet Wallet.
BitGet Wallet.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Right now, to be honest, it's mainly on swaps. So there is like a small swap fee that we do. So when you take a swap, we would have a transaction fee. It's not big, so it requires a lot of volume and users to be using us, right, in order for that to scale.
What does the volume need to get to for you to be a profitable business?
Are we there already, Alvin?
Because the biggest issue is that
Yeah.
You get all of these users. All of these users rely on a business like yours, and then you either need to jack up the prices, which devalue the users, and they go somewhere else, or you never hit critical mass, in which case you can't keep the software up, which means you lose the users.
Yeah. No, it's a fair question. I would say, without divulging our answers and so on, but we're actually in a good state. So, and there are a few reasons for that, right? So one is running a self-custodial wallet, we have to keep the team lean. And in a way, like we have to be very focused on what functions we actually introduce into the app itself. That's one. The other one is, in the world of Web3, at least today, there is actually a lot of token rewards that are given out by different projects, right? That's why, since November last year, it's been like airdrop seasons and so on. And one of it is then how do we, not just us providing value to the users, because that would require then a lot of resources and cost on our end, but how do we work with the other projects, right, to make sure that as a whole, we are capturing those value and giving back to our users, right? So for example, a lot of the users that are coming to our app, we don't do much advertising. In fact, we use such kind of rewards, right, to help these projects get users. And last week was it last week or last week? So every week we do what we call a fair launch pool. So we will gather token rewards from different projects and run certain like custom campaigns. I think last week itself, we gave out about, was it 500,000 in total of rewards to different users, right? Again, we can't do this without project partners, but that's again how the model can work today in the Web3 world. So it is slightly different from a Web2 world where in order to acquire users, you have to kind of like shell out a lot of advertising money and stuff.
Thanks, Alvin.
One more. Here we go. Amanda, here you go.
Hi,
Right,
can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me? Alvin?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. You mentioned earlier that one of the features of the wallet, I think was, and I don't know if I get this right, so correct me if I got it wrong, was that if somebody starts to type in an address, it will warn you if there were like characteristics about the token that you were trying to buy. But I'm curious if you have any kind of a feature where if somebody types out a full address, do you have anything either correlated with blockchain analytics or open source searching where anything that's been posted as like a scam wallet previously is warning customers, hey, somebody has reported that address previously as a scam? Or conversely, if you don't have that, A, would you consider it? And B, what are the things that you're doing to kind of help customers from scams?
Yeah, go ahead. So there are two kinds of addresses here, right? One is like addresses that you send money to. The other one is a token contract address that you basically buy or sell. We actually screen both types. So the partners that we work with, I think GoPlus is one of them. There are a few others, right? And what they do is they will screen through millions and millions of addresses on a daily basis. And then they would have kind of an API that we can call to understand whether these addresses are, like you say, fraudulent scams, or according to their parameters, like 50 over parameters, whether they are honeypots and so on. So yes to both. Those screening actually covers both.
All right. I'm sorry, guys. That's all the time we've got with Alvin. But Alvin, is there any kind of exciting news you want to share that happened on Monday?
Specifically.
That's very specific, but yes. So we are launching our ecosystem token called BWB, and what we're doing right now is a 6-week campaign where people can go in, do certain tasks like swapping and holding assets within your Bitget wallet, self-custody wallet, and then earn these BWB points, which will be very quickly be converted into BWB tokens by the end of this quarter. So if you're interested, join us.
All right. Thanks so much for your time, Alvin. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Amazing. That was a first for us, folks, where the technology actually worked. Thank goodness. Thanks, Chris, for not sleeping last night and getting that sorted. There was one time we were at another venue called Macari, and that's just down on Bridge Street. And the only way to actually get the CEO of Starkware to actually be able to listen in. Oh my God, that's bright. Thanks, Chris. The only way for that to work was for us to actually type the questions into the Zoom, and he was reading as and then calling out the answers and stuff. So that's great. Let's move to the next slide. Can you do that? That was great from Melbourne. By the way, we've got a podcast, so you're going to be hearing more about BitGet on the podcast. If anyone else is interested in the podcast, so this meetup goes live. It's live there now, so you'll see the recording there. But then also, you see the past meetups that we've got. You see the podcasts. We used to do a bit of new stuff as well, but it's been getting a bit too cumbersome in terms of time to do everything. We've got a newsletter as well that's out each Monday. If anyone is interested in helping out with producing some of this stuff, we're always open to hear it. All right, got the QR code, folks. We can get these up again later on too, or you've got the BitGet folks here, so you can grab some stuff off them. Let's go to the next one. Christopher, please. There we go. So Rob Wars and apologies, he couldn't make it. And basically, we had a podcast with him, and one of the most poignant quotes that he had from it was that, because he's come from NAB, so he's come from that traditional space. He was there part of them getting stablecoin tested. It's not mainstream yet. It's definitely just B2B for now, but very interesting stuff there. He's joined Cloud Tech, and thanks to that, he's a big believer in us, so he's sponsored. He said something at the end of the podcast, which we filmed just down at Circular Quay. He's like, I'm not a crypto bro, I'm a crypto gentleman. So we decided we'd make this. I wish he was here, because, I mean, this is not like, oh, you're just making up what he dresses like. He dresses like this, guys. So, there's some very stylish people out there. But he's very interested. We've got the Bitcoin standard. His thing is around the stablecoin standard. There's already a group out there that's doing that. He talks about it a lot as well. And coming from traditional finance, seeing the benefits that comes from programmable money is amazing. So we'll get him back up, or you can listen to the podcast. There were a lot of really cool things that he spoke about, and he's also running Cloud Tech. So yeah, next time he is Sydney based, so we'll see him on next. Speaking of next, let's get Igor up here. Come on down. What do you want? Yeah, here you go. Something called ETFs, apparently, we're going to talk about. What's going on? Is that working?
Hello? Yes.
Oh, we can hear you. There we go. All right. Well, you watch the price action a lot, and a lot of people here are interested in what's been happening in the crypto space. But what have you been seeing? What are some of your observations?
So maybe just a quick bit of background for those that don't know who I am. So I run a investment fund called Magnet Capital. We've been around for 6 years, exclusively focused on digital assets. We started with one fund. Now we run 4 funds. Quick bit of metrics. I think we've returned 27% IRR since inception. We've paid out 130% of those funds, of your initial capital, sorry. So doing pretty well, pretty happy in this market. We watch the ETFs a lot, one, because we have a Bitcoin-only fund, and 2, because this is the first time that Wall Street has ever been exposed to crypto in a really formalized way, and that being that they can just click on their BlackRock terminal or their Bloomberg terminal and invest in BlackRock. So this has been the hot topic for probably the last 9 months, ever since BlackRock filed for a spot Bitcoin ETF. There's a lot to talk about. This is not only one of the most successful ETF launches in the history of any ETF, it's also the one that's broken all of the records for acquiring the most amount of assets under management in the fastest time possible. So what you've seen, and you probably won't be able to get the details from here, but what you've seen is since the 11th of January, when the ETFs launched, BlackRock has amassed 12, nearly $13 billion of inflows in capital, which is absolutely insane. That is huge. If you look at any ETF ranking since 2023, it is at the top of every single metric that you can possibly have. New shares issued, new volume coming through, daily volume. It's really big.
So what you're saying is financial advisors need to be getting our stuff into crypto, yeah?
Yeah. I have a very skewed perspective on Australian financial advisors. So we can.
This is recorded too, so please.
Yeah, good. Good. So maybe I'll get to them after.
Okay.
No, the ETFs are a big deal. For anyone that's been around in crypto for a while, you guys will be bored hearing about buying Bitcoin. But for people that cannot get that kind of exposure, the people that don't understand what a private key and a public key is, but want some kind of digital asset in their portfolio, this is the only way to get it. So they're never going to hold native coins by themselves, and they probably wouldn't have bought GBTC because of the trust rules and not being able to exit. But this they can buy. So this is a huge deal. That was a huge, really long answer to your very simple question.
I just said hello. No, but I'm sorry I didn't introduce you. I just assume everyone knows Igor because, I mean, look at him, he's beautiful. But apart from my affections, ETFs have also been something. Before coming into crypto, I was in this space. I used to work for the ASX, and for my sins, I used to track a lot of ETFs. I built something called ETF Tracker, a data analytics app, which has been stopped now because I've been too busy with crypto. I know. I'm so good with names, right? What are we going to call you? DeFi Association? Australian DeFi Association? So my point is
bottle shop.
Exactly. But you're absolutely right that this space has blown the minds of people in traditional finance in terms of how much it's grown, whether it's financial advisors, people at the exchanges, the investment banks, the hedge funds, etc. So it's really exciting where we're heading. And you've got a few charts for us as well, don't you? Should we get to Chris? I know you're tinkering with the cameras. because you love cameras. Can we get to the next slide, someone, please?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so let me explain this one. We speak to a lot of advisors. We speak to a lot of families about why you should invest in this asset class. And coming from a purist technology background, we believe that this is the future of the internet moving forward. To them, they don't care about that. They don't understand what that means. To them, it's about financial returns. It's absolute returns. What do you actually get? What this chart shows you, the green line is the Bitcoin price. The blue line is your trailing annualized 4-year returns. So if at any point in time you pick, if you say that you pick the peak of the previous market, which was 2022, $69,000. If you had invested 4 years before that and just held for 4 years and did absolutely nothing, right? You would get an annualized return of whatever it was, 150% every year, right? So this is the way that we talk to financial advisors around what it means to get exposure to this asset class. It is very volatile. Yes, we understand that. It trades 24/7, 365. There are no closing periods. It is a global asset. All you need to do is hold for 4 years, and you are guaranteed to make money based on historicals. Historicals are only 13 years. Exactly right. There's no guarantees in life, apart from death and taxes, sure.
And you guys are licensed, so this is financial advice, right?
This is definitely not financial advice. As far as I'm concerned, we're in the treehouse, right? So this is not news to all of you. This is just my learnings of what we've gone through, right? So
there's a sarcasm detector on the video, so it's okay.
My name is Tom, and I'm not from Magnet Capital. No, but what this shows you is all that you need to do in order to be successful in crypto is hold for more than 4 years. That's simply the case. You just buy Bitcoin and hold for more than 4 years if you're a really conservative investor. The reason that happens is because we're going through this price finding mechanism with Bitcoin. And I keep referring back to Bitcoin because if you ask any household name, there's really only two that they all come up with. It's Bitcoin and even slightly maybe potentially Ethereum.
Doge. No? Okay.
Doge, I mean, unless you're an Elon fanboy, you'll never know Doge.
Doge is top 10 at the moment, which is crazy. Still.
It's your Elon option. Doge is the Elon option. Look, the reason that we're so excited for the future is because the ETFs bring in a completely new kind of buyer. Wall Street has never been involved in this way before. The fact that we're seeing retail's really not even in the space at the moment and we're already at previous all-time highs, is really exciting. It should be something that everyone is looking at saying, wow, this is a real turning point in the market where we're starting to get institutional involvement. We're at previous all-time high. How big is this market going to go?
And we've still got time to grow. Yeah,
we've got
absolutely.
time, and we definitely have time.
Speaking of traditional finance and also crypto, let's get to the next chart, please, Chris, with the clicker wherever it is. Or can someone, Chris? Oh, wrong way. Other way, please. Do you guys like this voice-activated thing that we've got? It's great. This is a correlation chart that we built at Not Centralized because we like to see how traditional markets compare. You've got here, and I'll get you to talk to it, but like you've got here the price of BTC in US dollars in the orange, and the blue is the price of the S&P 500. Looks pretty comparable. A lot of people talking about, it's different, and for a while it wasn't correlated, but more and more people are seeing it as like this growth asset, very much similar to traditional finance. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, usually this all started with liquidity. So when you printed more money went into the stock market, more money went into assets, and that's where you have really severe correlation between the S&P and crypto in respect to Bitcoin. What this is showing you, I'll tell you the nuance first. In the S&P, there's really only a small handful of companies that are doing exceptionally well, and those are the tech businesses. The reason that they're doing well, the way that they're doing well, is they're maintaining their prices while lowering their expense ratio. They're getting rid of staff but maintaining their revenues, which is giving them this incredible profit ratio. And that's why the prices are driving higher, because if they can continue to do this, because the whole world uses Microsoft and Google, and now everyone wants M1000s from NVIDIA, the reason that you're able to do this is because you're recycling that money that needs to go somewhere into these tech businesses. That's the nuance. What's actually happening here is, you're right, the correlation between where we think that we're going to get alpha from the market and what people actually want to invest in. So in reality, this shouldn't be happening, because interest rates are still up. And yes, there are some cuts coming, but inflation is persistent. Therefore, whatever cuts you think, it's not going to be that dramatic. The stock market's still going up, and in turn, Bitcoin's still going up. Now, gold is also going up. So you're at this really weird market dynamic where you've got a protection on inflation, which is typically gold, going up. You've got stocks going up really because of 7 companies. So what do you do, and where do you put your money? In my eyes, that's why I think Bitcoin is getting a bid at the moment, because you just don't know. It's your hedge against uncertainty. It's your hedge against a potential in second round inflation. It's your hedge against monetary policy. It's your hedge against US debt default. I think people are slowly, because of the help of the ETFs and Wall Street, people are slowly starting to understand that rhetoric. And that's why you're getting record outflows of gold, even though the price is going up, and record inflows of Bitcoin.
And Bitcoin's just more fun, so, you know. All right, well, with that, thank you so much, Igor. We're going to get to some of the next sessions, but stick around. And if you guys have any more kind of questions or financial advice, or, I don't know, fashion advice too, please.
Tom, my name is Tom.
Tom. Yeah. Thank you, Tom.
Cheers.
All right, let's flip the script. Let's go international next. Angela, TRM Labs. Let's come on down. Here you go.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for joining us. You've flown in from Singapore?
Yes, I'm horribly jet lagged from the horrible time difference of.
You're welcome. We want to talk about TRM Labs and get a bit of background on who you are, because I didn't do it well with Igor. I just jumped straight in, so I apologize. But can you give us a bit of background, then we'll talk about TRM a little bit?
Sure. So I'm Angela Ang. I'm a senior policy advisor with TRM Labs. And basically in this capacity, I run Asia Pacific public policy and government affairs for the company. I guess you could call me a crypto regen. I came from the side of the financial ecosystem that's furthest away from what you might call the forefront of innovation, but hold that thought. I was actually with the Monetary Authority of Singapore as a regulator for over 10 years. And how I kind of fell into crypto was my last role at the MAS was part of the pioneering team implementing the Payment Services Act in Singapore. So I was, thank you. I was basically in charge of licensing payments and crypto service providers in Singapore and setting up that regulatory framework. So I've come at crypto from the angle of regulation, policy, and compliance. And today I'm with TRM Labs, which is a RegTech blockchain analytics firm. We basically use public blockchain data to help our clients detect and fight fraud and financial crime on the blockchain. So basically, if you will, AML for crypto.
You're the good guys.
Well, everyone's a good guy, right? Or trying to be.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think we got rid of a lot of the people that were, coming into this for nefarious purposes. But what I mean is that it's nice to know that even before regulation is coming in fully across the globe, that there are groups like yours, Chainalysis and others, that even groups that are just keeping track of things like, there was a group called RugDoc, RUGDOC, and they just kept the track of, if you go to rugdoc.io, it's still there. They keep a track of like what are the scams and help steer people away from all that kind of stuff. But You guys put out a report earlier at the start of this year, and that blew up a little bit, which is great. It was the crypto policy outlook. I mean, we used our AI tool to go, I mean, because it's a long report, and you should definitely read it in full. I recommend that. But like, you know, when pressed for time, there's AI, and you know, it was interesting pointing out what's going on around the globe. But could you tell us a bit more about the report, some of the findings that were interesting?
Sure, and if you fall asleep, kind of midway through my spiel, I did just put up a video on LinkedIn where we summarized the report in 1 minute. So if you can
Amazing.
only stay with me for 1 minute, just watch that video on LinkedIn. But yeah, thanks Mark for letting me talk about one of my babies that I nurtured over Christmas and New Year's. Yeah, so basically the policy team at TRM Labs, we took a look at crypto policy developments in 2023 across 21 jurisdictions that typically represent about 6% of global crypto exposure. So the story, I'm sure, will no surprise to anyone. There's been a huge acceleration of regulation, and we found that 80% of these 21 jurisdictions actually did some sort of move to tighten crypto regulation in 2023, and about half actually did something specific to consumer protection. So the report is long, but you know, just let me kind of explain my philosophy. It was not kind of meant to be read at one go, all 23 pages. Basically, it's meant to be a pocket guide. Like one day, if you wake up and you're like, oh, what happened in Canada in crypto policy last year? You just flip to the paragraph on Canada. Yeah, yeah, it's meant to be a pocket guide. We have a calendar of policy events for like the real policy nerds in the room, which I'm sure is all of you. Of what's happening in 2024. And already it's so crazy, we're only like 2.5 months into 2024, but already there are things that should be on that calendar that we didn't see in December. And I mean, it was absolutely brutal writing this report because I was done with it before Christmas. And then, oh, you know, after Christmas and New Year's, there were like all these regulators obviously trying to meet some sort of 31st December, you know, timeline that they set for themselves, issuing new regulations as we sang Auld Lang Syne and welcomed in the new year. So yeah, but I mean, I think the idea was kind of like to give an overview of what has happened, and yeah, I mean, cool. I would actually really like to use your tool on some of the reports that I had to read to write this report.
See, isn't it beautiful, crypto coming together to work together on with Mark's AI tool? Anyway, no, it was really interesting what it pulled out, and you can see some of it on screen here. And then we did a further refinement, so it crosses over a lot with what you had there. But you know, Brazil and Argentina are up there, and you mentioned Canada's focus on, you know, but what was like one of your favorite things to write about in terms of jurisdictions?
Well, I mean, I spent 10 years at the Monetary Authority of Singapore, so obviously I wrote like a long love letter to Singapore. It was interesting kind of even counting the number of licenses. I think it was 14 at that point, now it'll be slightly higher, that had gone out of Singapore in crypto. But I think, you know, the most kind of thing that most interested me in terms of, you know, looking at the findings and putting together the report was the global trend around the impact of regulation on illicit activity. So unsurprisingly, to me as a former regulator at least, we found, I mean, TRM looked at blockchain data pertaining to VAS or virtual asset service providers, and we found that those that were operating in jurisdictions with full licensing and regulatory regimes had significantly lower rates of illicit volume. So, you know, like regulation is your friend, don't shun it.
The system works, folks. Let's jump to the next couple of slides, Chris. Hello, AI Chris. All right, so Psych said that, yep, overall, like if you could describe the report in 4 sentences, it did this. Now, it may be hit or miss. This is not AI advice. But global crypto policy saw significant regulatory developments, MICA, Hong Kong, etc. in the US. Next, Chris. The G20 under India's presidency, so there was work towards more common standards. Next, Chris. Jurisdictions like Argentina and Brazil made more strides to crypto-friendly policies, and I think some of us saw that, a lot of good stuff coming out of South America in favor of us. And then the final piece, oh, there we go, wow. Did you know that was voice activated? Let's go to the next one, Chris. Overall, the trend towards more consistent standards and regulatory clarity. Is that what you're seeing, Angela?
Yeah, I think we talked about this at the Blockchain APAC and Ripple event earlier today about consistent standards, right? And we're all like, and me and my fellow panelists were like, all like, yeah, international organizations bring regulators to talk together. Everyone recognizes they have to talk with each other because crypto is borderless. Then I said, let me throw in something a little bit spicy. The fact is that global regulatory alignment is impossible. Like just countries are different, they have different philosophies, they have different priorities, and it's never going to be 100% regulatory alignment. So I think these kind of international conversations are merely here to kind of set a minimum bar, but it is important to be part of them. And I think we do see Australia engaging at some of these international forums, and we're here to engage with Australia because as a business we care very much. Shout out to my Aussie team here. Hello, John O'Neill. So
Right.
yeah, as a company that is deeply invested in the success of the Australian market, we are very also concerned in kind of shaping that policy dialogue, in the right direction.
And we've got great weather here in Australia, so people should be invested in here. But it's really interesting. Like you're absolutely right. We can't expect that we're just going to have the one rule that's just going to go around globally. Everyone has different jurisdictions, but here's the beauty of it all, right? We can have smart contracts that are jurisdictionally compliant. We've seen protocols that were maybe a little bit too early trying to do that kind of stuff. But imagine if there's a token that's compliant with Singapore law and it needs to move to Australia. Well, it gets burned there, minted here in Australia, and we can have the regulation that applies in Australia apply to that token. We can do this stuff. We're actually more regulated given our technology. In the real world, we have rules and regulations, and then we have law enforcement after. But if you're not allowed to do something, you can just put it into the smart contract that stops that to begin with. So in a way, crypto is the best technology out there, and people, are really trying to push the government to realize this and be friendly with regulations here. So it's interesting to see the Singaporean perspective.
No, I like what you said because in Singapore a couple months back at the Singapore FinTech Festival, we had a roundtable on DeFi, and one company at the roundtable basically said, it is possible to bake compliance into DeFi as it is developing today. And it's also an interesting trend. Actually, as a AML compliance business, we do work with DeFi clients, with DeFi protocols. And we do see kind of like a shift like over the last 2 years where the protocols themselves are actually interested in controls, interested in compliance, and interested in regulatory developments. In fact, there are some that are even seeking to be regulated and seeking to kind of shape that regulatory environment with more enlightened policymakers, I guess.
It's like, question? Yeah, go ahead. Second, let's get you the microphone, otherwise no one's on the video.
So, quick question. The only jurisdiction that people look at is the US. So, given that we're in election season, when Trump wins, is that
I think
good or bad for
election
crypto
advice?
policy?
just looked up at you or looked
Again, my
down.
name is Tom, so I'm from the US.
Well, so our next international guest is actually from the US. So how about I let her tackle that? But my view is, yes, you're right. Everyone's watching what happens in the US, and I think they're actually one of the themes that we talk about in crypto policy is elections, because there are just a lot of them happening this year and next year. But I think in jurisdictions, for example, like the UK. There's bipartisan support for the idea of UK developing as a digital assets hub. I think nowhere are there kind of more distinct views in two sides of the house than in the US. So that will definitely, I think that will definitely shape the face of crypto. I mean, who wins the election will definitely change how crypto looks in the US. And from there, the rest of the world will be watching. So I think out of all the elections that are happening this year and next year, probably the one to watch for me is the US election.
Yeah, it's interesting that it was, what was it, in the NFL, the Arizona Cardinals versus the San Francisco 49ers. It was Trump versus Biden. The year was 2020. It's the exact same thing, 2024. It's like we haven't really moved. So anyway, we'll get to the next slide, Chris, please. We've got the 1inch report. Do you want to say a few words about that before we move on?
Yeah. I mean, we were just chatting, Mark, and I thought, since we're at the DeFi Association, And since I love talking about compliance, I had to marry the two and just put it out there that compliance in DeFi is possible. We do. So there's a guy over there called Adriel Wong, and he works with all our DeFi clients. So if you want to know how it really works, that he's the guy to talk to. But I think fundamentally, like I said, we are observing a shift in terms of DeFi protocols and kind of like how they're viewing regulation and compliance. So the case study that we did with the 1inch Network, which is one of our clients, basically it was talking about how they used TRM's wallet screening APIs to kind of automatically identify risky addresses that may be transacting with the network. So, I mean, all of this is automated, so it is possible to do some sort of compliance even in a fully decentralized environment. So I think just wanted to put that out there.
Amazing. And look, guys, there's a lot of great reports. If you go to the TRM Labs website, there's a lot of great insights on their blog.
Next slide.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, it didn't. Never mind.
Oh, it didn't come through.
That's also a great Women in Crypto. We are TRM Labs, and Angela Ang are fully supportive of everything. So that's also a great website to visit. But www.trmlabs.com for the report, the 1inch case study, and if not, just hit me up.
Yeah, and for the folks watching online, it'll be in the show links as well. So watch this replay and you'll see all of it. We'll put it up on the Twitter too. But Angela, thank you so much for flying down.
No, thank you for having me, Mark.
If you want to grab your colleague on the way.
Yeah, I'll
Amanda.
pass the mic to the one who can talk about the US.
All right. Amanda Wick, come on down. This is the final talk before we get back to networking, folks. So I think there's a few more pizzas still out there. So yeah, I hope you're still hungry and stuff. All right, before we begin, let's get to know who is Amanda Wick, for those of you that don't know. Where were you before all of this? What brought you into crypto? Please.
Actually, my name is Tom.
Ah. I am Spartacus.
No, seriously. So my name is Amanda Wick. I was a federal prosecutor, actually. I was a money laundering prosecutor. And in, I think, 2012, 2013, one of my agents came in and said, "Do you know what a Bitcoin is?" And I said, "That's not a real thing." And he said, "No, actually it is. And it looks like we have a guy who is a very entrepreneurial fellow and got on the dark web and realized there was a real market gap on the dark web. And you had a lot of people selling drugs, you had a lot of people buying drugs, selling drugs, but what you didn't have was somebody who would buy Bitcoin and give you cash, or buy cash and give you Bitcoin with no KYC. And there was a real market opportunity here. And he was one of the biggest money launderers on the dark web. And so at the time I had to learn this, and back then we didn't have anything. We just went to YouTube University to learn about Bitcoin. And a bunch of us were finding these cases and learning about this technology. And back then there was, maybe Chainalysis had started. I don't know, the TRM Labs people might know the date better. I was at Chainalysis, I was their chief of legal affairs. I should know when they started. You guys in the room might know better. It's like after Mt. Gox. When was Gox? Okay, so it might have been actually before Chain, but like back then we were saying like this is just criminal money. Like we were telling juries like only criminals are using this. We might have been right. We didn't have data, so we were right until somebody said we weren't. But like over the years, as we were processing these cases, we started to see like, well, there's a technological aspect to this stuff that's actually fascinating, and there's non-criminals using it, and then Overstock happened, and the Bitcoin pizza happened, and then a lot of us that had been kind of looking at this stuff were like, this is actually super cool. It fixes a lot of problems. And so I left DOJ, and I went to FinCEN, which is the financial intelligence unit in the US, and we were working on crypto policy there. And then I left, and as a prosecutor, I had been using Chainalysis tools to show jurors how money laundering works, because they make these beautiful graphs of like fund flows, right? So I went to be their chief of legal affairs, and I learned a ton about blockchain analytics. And then I left, and I went to the Hill for a year, and then I left, and I started the Association for Women in Crypto.
So not that busy, really.
It was a journey.
Sorry, it's the sarcasm. The Aussie sarcasm doesn't come through. I'm so sorry.
Mark's
Very
scripts
busy.
Mark's scripts are so fast. At the end of the day, I'm just kind of like I'm not fast enough for you.
Shut up now.
Yeah. No, it was pretty crazy. I will say, like, and I think a lot of you might work at startups. I think the thing that was mind blowing to me and I don't think this was specific to Chainalysis, but working at a startup, I tell people it's like dog years. Like 1 year at a startup felt like 7 in the government. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the speed, or maybe just, I think the industry that was crypto blockchain, but you were just drinking from a fire hose and things were changing and there was so much education, and startups are like move fast, break things, and they don't really look at price tags of what they're breaking. And if you're the chief of legal affairs, you're kind of like, that's really expensive. Let's not break that. So it was a really interesting, insane, incredible ride. I will say, hands down, the best thing about Chain, and I think this goes for TRM based on all of the TRM people I've met as well, is they attract the best of the best in the industry, and you get to work with the most brilliant, amazing people because they just cream skim the best of MAS, the best of Australia law enforcement. Like, they just take the best people, and so for however long you get the privilege to work there, you get to work with some of the most amazing minds in crypto from all these different fields. And in a year, I just was like a sponge, and I learned a ton. And that, I think that was, if you get the chance, I highly recommend it because they are incredible companies to work for.
Absolutely. And with what you created going on beyond those amazing roles that you were able to be in, the amazing people that you would have worked with at Chainalysis and The Hill and everywhere, government and non-government. But what led you to creating, and sorry, well, what is the Association for Women in Cryptocurrency, and what led you to creating this?
It's a secret lady cabal. No, sorry. You've got me making terrible jokes now.
I love
sorry.
it. It's infectious,
It is
folks. Talk
infectious.
to me further.
So what happened was, for a long time in the US government, for some reason, whether it was DOJ, FinCEN, DEA, a lot of us that were leaders in crypto were actually women. It was a very weird thing. I don't know how we got into it, but if you looked at DOJ, if you looked at who was doing most of the worthwhile things in crypto, it was a lot of women. And we were all friendly, and we were all networked together, and we saw each other at a lot of things. And then I left and went to Chainalysis, and I went to the industry, and you would have thought there were no women in crypto. Like, lists of top people at conferences, who's being featured. And it was literally like all the women had disappeared. And I think because I had been spoiled in the government, it was very jarring for me. But then when I talked to other women, especially women who came from tech or women who came from financial services, they were like, no, this is how it is. This is just how these industries are. And I thought to myself, I guess it's not surprising that if the child of financial services and tech had a baby, that the child of 2 dysfunctional parents would be super dysfunctional. And it turns out crypto, blockchain, Web3 has a massive inclusion problem. And I started the association because I wanted to build a women's group that had male allies. That was hugely important. We are a group for the inclusion of women that has tons of male members. Our first being Ari Redboard at TRM Labs, one of our biggest supporters, also one of our sponsors from the beginning. So hugely, hugely appreciative. But these guys have actually been critical because we can't do this alone. And today at the Ripple Policy Forum, Rahul Advani from Ripple, also one of our male allies, one of the men who signed the Male Ally Pledge.
Yeah, I'm signing it soon, sorry.
I'm just teasing.
It's a dig. She's allowed to dig. It's okay.
Yeah. But one of the incredible things was they did the Ripple Policy Forum, and they had 51% women speakers. And that might not seem like a huge thing because you might think oh, why wouldn't it be 50% women speakers? But the average crypto policy, the average crypto blockchain Web3 conference sometimes has 3, 8, or 10% women speakers. And if you look at AI, there's one online right now, I forget, Super AI, I think, that just got advertised. One woman, and we're not counting Sophia the robot, that does not count as a woman, but one actual human woman out of, I think, 35 or 40 speakers.
You know what's really interesting, on that, and crossing over, because I run another association because I don't sleep. It's called Data Science and AI Australia. And it's the same thing, the low numbers in terms of percentage of females that are involved, and even just diversity, it's really low across that space. But what was interesting this morning, I was not in blockchain mode, I was in healthcare mode. I do a lot of work in healthcare and AI. And at this conference, Australian Healthcare Week, there was a really good balance. The industry is what provided a lot of that good balance. We were talking about AI, very technical stuff, and it was 50-50. So it is possible, is what I'm saying.
It is, and I think the thing that Rahul said that really kind of made my year was he said that because he had signed the pledge, he thought about it. it's not like everyone runs around saying, let's keep out the women and let's not invite the women. It's that you're busy, you put together a panel, you ask the people that you know, you have friends, it's just so easy. You're putting together a panel, and the next thing you know, you're advertising it, and a social card goes online. And I've literally had planners say, we didn't realize until somebody uploaded the social card on LinkedIn that it was 5 men. And then we were like, oh crap. And this happens because, like, if I asked you, I'm coming to Sydney, can you throw a dinner party tomorrow? And I said, like, can you throw a dinner party for 6 people? Would you invite 6 strangers that you didn't know? Like, let's assume we're friends and you give a shit about the time that I have. Like, would you invite 6 strangers? Who would you invite? I mean, not specifically. I don't need names, but you would invite friends. You would invite people that you know that aren't going to embarrass you, that aren't going to, like, right? But you'd invite Tom, right? So, like, this is the thing, like, when we talk about unconscious bias, I'm like, it's not like the world is sitting out here saying, how do we keep women out of the conferences? It's that if all you know is men, and if the industry, if men are your friends, it actually takes effort to be intentionally inclusive. And when Rahul sat down and went to invite people, just because he was simply thinking about it, they ended up at 51% women, just because he made a conscious effort to do it. And the reality is, you can pretend that you're not human and that you're not subject to unconscious bias, but we all are. We all are. And so we're working on fixing that. And so between women, we started in October, what year is it, 2024? We started in October 2022, and I had 50 founding members who just agreed to support me when I was nothing but an idea and a website. And now we're over 400 members in 18 countries. We had 50 events last year in 12 countries. I think we have 15 sponsors, and we are building chapters around the world, including Sydney and New Zealand, that are getting women and allies together to network, to educate about crypto, blockchain, and Web3, and to also advocate just for greater inclusion of women. So if that's something Tom has a question.
Tom has a question. Remember, she used to be a prosecutor, so just remember.
I'll keep my question really light.
No, you can ask serious questions. It's being recorded.
Okay, great. How much of this is just nature over what we actually want? And what I say about that is crypto started in the depths of computer science, incredibly technical. Typically, there's not that many females that do computer science as a degree. There's not that many females that are really deeply interested in cryptography all the way through. I mean, you get the same issues in finance. I used to work in private equity. When we used to hire, there would be 90 applicants male, 10 applicants female. And that skew exists whether you like it or not. So how much of it is just part of the thing that you're doing, this being crypto and it being quite obscure, quite niche, quite technical, typically doesn't have that many input.
I swear I didn't pay him to ask that question, but it's such a good question. So that's a pipeline problem. We have a pipeline problem. And there's a lot about what we talk about that is why it's not a simple answer to this problem of just ask more women. Because I have one conference planner who asked 46 men, I think, to get 38 to 40. He had to ask 80 women to get 40. There were 80 women to ask. He had to ask 80 of them to get 40. Because whether it was imposter syndrome and they said, I'm not qualified enough to speak. He said, I looked at this woman's LinkedIn profile. She was overly qualified to speak. I called this dude. He's like, I can speak on anything, right? Like, there are...
Is that Tom?
It's kind of like...
Tom?
His name was Tom. No. But realistically, there are norms and societal things that we are 100% dealing with. So part of the association is both acknowledging... Okay, so let me back up for a second. To put it in like an analogy, we are playing in a rigged game where there are these rules, right, that are just, there are just problems. And whether it's how society deconditions risk out of women when they're younger so that as they get older, especially if they're responsible for childcare responsibilities, they're usually less likely to be able to take risky leaps in their career. It's difficult. One of my friends is like a C-suite executive at a major crypto company, tried to get his wife to leave IBM and come to crypto. Even though he is the C-suite executive at one of the top 15 companies, she was like, you must be crazy. It's so risky. That's your job. I'm not leaving IBM. I'm not leaving my paycheck. Like, there's so much societal conditioning that creates the pipeline problem, that creates, if we manage to get them into this industry and then we don't profile them and it's harder. So like, it's like swimming upstream And like the moment today when Rahul said we got 51%, I was like, great. Because it's one small win. But like if I stop and look at the report last year by the winner of the Nobel Prize in Economics, who looked at what actually was causing the gender pay gap. It was not the things that we think in the sense of equally qualified woman, equally qualified man doing the same job, dude gets paid more. It's not that simple. It's that for the last several hundred years, women have lost because of the majority of childbearing responsibility. The societal and home systems in nearly every culture in the world do not provide women with any ability to keep up if they have children. If a majority of society encourage women to have children, equally qualified woman, equally qualified man, and she's had a child, she's never, there's no ability for her to catch up. So talk about the difference between equity and equality, and I don't know if you've ever seen that picture of the three people in front of the fence, man, disabled person, and a woman. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend it because it explains the difference between equity and equality. And in the picture on equality, they're all standing on the ground or sitting in the wheel, looking at a fence, 3 different heights. Guy sees over the fence, woman's looking into the fence, wheelchair looking into the fence. And equality is a picture where guy's looking over the fence, woman's standing on a box, guy in wheelchair has a slightly bigger box, and their heads are all at the same level, looking over the fence. If what you have done is set groups hundreds of years through policies that we had no control over, through unconscious bias and norms that just perpetuate, you have to do things like be intentionally inclusive to bring those groups up to the same opportunity. And that's literally what we're trying to do. And it is, we won't fix it in time. I think statistically, the gender gap alone, I think is going to take 123 years. We'll probably be cooking as humans on the side then, so that gives me comfort that everybody burning alive. But at least gender equality might get a little bit better, and that's the goal.
It'll be humans versus the AI anyway.
Yeah.
So the
And here's the
inequality
thing,
will be...
This is actually forward to is that when it takes over humans, there's a good chance we get gender equality like that. We'll be enslaved to the robots, we'll be equally enslaved. Equal enslavement is a form of equality.
Okay.
yeah, I like my orange jumpsuits anyway. So anyway, here we go, Pex.
Can I quickly throw out some random stats? So I'm at the back. It's Chris here. So 15%.
Oh my God, Chris never talks.
Science,
please.
In terms of the computing science, only 15% of women actually passed the computing science or entered into computing science last year. And the interesting stat, which I love about policy, so I do a lot of this, I work with a company that does a lot of this stuff, so it's a real side passion project of mine, so I love that you're talking about this. But they did a study around applicants with women submitting for jobs versus men submitting for jobs. And the first study they did is they put all of these resumes out. There was no mention of gender, and they went, pick these policies just based on what you know. And it was pretty even choices between women and men in that instance. The moment gender was introduced to that equation, the number of women selected significantly dropped down to like 5% of women got through just because of the mention of gender. So it's like, and that's across all industries, not just in tech, it's like mining, consulting, all that type of stuff. It's like a huge problem, all because of what you said. It is policy. It goes back to the beginning of that innate, societal implications that have been brought upon people in this.
Chris is a recent girl dad as well, so he's an ally, whether he likes it or not.
Chris, you actually reminded me of something. If you go to our website, womenincrypto.org, actually do you see where the yellow button says register to get the report? I would encourage each of you to click on that because last year, many of you may have gotten my harassment LinkedIn messages, but we did a survey globally. We had over 500 respondents from over 200 companies. It was an inclusion survey in crypto, blockchain, and Web3 globally. And we looked at all kinds of demographics, but the number one thing that was an issue was gender. Like gender is the largest issue that crypto, blockchain, Web3 has. Interestingly, the company that we use called Diversio does a lot of DEI work in the tech industry. So they had a benchmark of a bunch of tech companies. In comparison to the general tech industry, which I think was at like 78 for an inclusion score, crypto scored 48.
Well done.
So in comparison to tech, we are worse. Question for you. One of the 5 metrics was workplace safety, which included physical, sexual, and emotional harassment, which would include toxic work environments. Women scored for women who scored 1 out of 3 saying like they did not believe that they had workplace safety in the industry. The percentage was, I believe, and I'm close, so don't quote me on these numbers, but it was 82% of women did not feel that their workplace was safe. What percentage would you guess of men said that their workplace was not safe? 0?
Fairly close.
5.
5? Anyone else? Less than 10? Any other numbers? This is like The Price is Right. You only lose if you go over.
20.
48% of men reported. Now, bear
My
in
colleagues
mind.
aren't here, and I feel unsafe around them. So. You guys know them too.
So bear in mind, this included men who identify as disabled or LGBTQ, so there was some of that.
I'm not saying anything.
But it also included workplace toxicity and emotional harassment and toxic work environments. And for some of you, I might be describing your company if you're led by, say, a San Fran-based Silicon Valley narcissist who started a company, right? Like, there is a reality of some of these companies that they are fostering horrible cultures for everyone. Gender is a massive problem, but crypto has a workplace safety problem. And a lot came out of this study that we were kind of thrown by. And we are working with a lot of companies to say, we need to change that because workplaces should hopefully be safe for everyone. I would like it to be safe for everyone. I would really love the gender gap to be narrowed, but I really don't want 48% of men and 82% of women to feel unsafe, like in their work, in the crypto block. Because if that continues, guess how many really good people will come into the crypto blockchain? How are you going to guess somebody come into crypto blockchain Web3 if they go on Glassdoor and read about strippers at parties and they read about horrible things and they read about toxic work environments and employers screaming at that? Like, that is not a industry that you will get people to come into. And as passionate as we all are about this, if you want to get computer scientists and TradFi and all these brilliant people, at least make it safe. Right?
To my uni students in the audience, I know there's a few of you there. This is something that we are seeing a lot more overseas rather than in Australia, so don't worry, folks.
That's
We will
actually
take care
true.
of you.
I will say the geographical demographics did matter. I think because Aussies are so lovely.
She's going to move down here, by the way, guys. So
no, but seriously, like this is something that we're really passionately working about. We also wanted a benchmark over the next 3 to 5 years for, are we moving the needle in the industry? Because as an advocacy association in a data-based industry, if we don't have data that measures what we're doing, you can run around saying we're trying to make things better for women, but if you have data, it's a lot more helpful to say, hey, we started here and hopefully in a few years we'll have better metrics.
Measure it and track it, folks. We've got one more question, then we're going to get back to the networking. Go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, so I think it's really interesting what you said about the...
But you want to know about the Trump thing, don't you? No.
the Ripple conference and all that. And I think that's really good that, 51% women speaking. But these are all people who are already in the space, yeah? Like you can easily find these people. And I think you also talked about the pipeline issue of just like female talent coming into companies at all. Like obviously more role models is one way of trying to solve the problem. But what do you think is, like, what are the steps that I guess you guys are trying to do and what we as a sort of a community can do to sort of improve this pipeline problem overall?
So actually, Chris kind of alluded to this, and I didn't even have to pay him to do it. But we, as a professional association of women and allies in a very specific industry, cannot solve the pipeline problem. I'm taking bites out of an elephant, one little bite at a time, right? There are groups like Girls Who Code. There are all kinds of organizations that are working on the pipeline problem. Chris pointed out the issue of like unconscious bias in hiring. There's all kinds of advocacy movements to try to change that. But the really interesting thing that gave me hope about our survey is that we actually asked people the question in parallel. What did they feel about the industry and what did they feel about their company? And in situations where people were willing to identify their company, and we had at least 8 respondents who identified the same company, we could have statistically significant data by each company. And we had, I think, at least 10 companies where more than 8 people responded. And what we found was that companies could make it better than the industry. Companies could have better inclusion scores than the industry. Companies could make policies that impacted workplace safety, that improved that had workplace flexibility, that had policies that made it better. And so to Chris's point, that's a matter of your HR policy looking at how are we doing? Do we take gender off of our job applications, which a lot of companies are doing? I think you see this more in more developed industries that grew, and are now trying to fix it. One of the reasons when people say, well, why are you just crypto, blockchain, Web3? And sadly, I'm like, well, because I think financial services and tech are a lost cause. But realistically, it's because the people that I know in crypto, blockchain, Web3, and granted this is coming from largely government and knowing TradFi people, they left because they were willing to open their hearts and minds to something that was broken, and they wanted to make it better. They're a community of improvers. They're a community of people who looked around and said, this is not working for a lot of people and we can do better. So they're already in a mindset of what we had was broken and we fix it. And when I talk to blockchain Web3 companies and builders and I say, you are building amazing things. We are building a future. What if we just built in inclusion at the foundational level, at the layer 0, if you will? And maybe we could have it be better than the other two, because if you try to bolt it on later and create a aftermarket sunroof on a car that's been built, you end up, as I learned when I went to Exmouth, with a really kind of crappy, like janky hole in the top of your car that is not a good solution. I had never seen it in real life, and then I met panel work in Exmouth, and it turns out like if you actually build an aftermarket sunroof, it looks terrible. It's a terrible. So the point is, like, we can build it. We can build it in, and you have a community of people who are willing to do this. And so the reception that I get in crypto, blockchain, Web3 is really great. Now, I will say, I remember when I told a guy that I did this at Singapore FinTech Festival, and we were at like a late night event that Circle was throwing, and I told him I was doing this because I was trying to get more women in the industry, and he was like, this is great because I'm so tired of the sausage fest. Who wants to dance with men? I don't want to dance with men at these parties. So if you're bringing more women in, I am here for it. And that was one of my first allies, because you know what? That's a potential for growth right there. And I will take it. I will take it. And wouldn't you know, like, we have to start somewhere, but this is much better than if you think this isn't a problem. And I'm sorry, Jono, but I have to. If you think this isn't a problem, go on to Jono Newman's LinkedIn page and look at his post when he posted his pledge to unmantle your panel. We had an initiative where we had more than 100 male allies who pledged not to speak on all male panels, and many of them publicly posted on their LinkedIn page that they were not going to speak on an all male panel. And if you think that there aren't misogynistic people out there who do not support this, go read the comments on Jono's post. There were a lot of men that messaged me who were like, holy crap, this is shocking.
We've got one more here, and Chris, I think, wanted something as well.
I just want to add to that in terms of the question that was asked. Like, and it kind of
we'll
touches on the post that you mentioned, but it often starts with yourself also making that change, being aware, doing some research around it, and then just calling it out in those small instances when it occurs. It is amazing how much of a difference that makes. It just if you're in a room of 10 men and someone does something, just call it out. Hopefully, at least just one of them, it'll trigger something, and that'll trigger the next, and that'll trigger the next person, and you get a triage effect that will hopefully impact a few people. Like, so it starts with everyone, like the males and everyone in the room, making that one little step and just calling out that BS every now and then when it pops up.
So in fairness, and Tom, I promise I will keep this short. We had an event in, and this guy came, and the room was, I'd say, about 90% women, maybe very few men. I'd say like 5 men tops. We do this facilitated networking, and he comes over to me afterwards, and he says, Amanda, is this what it's like for you at conferences? Like 95% men, like 5% women. This is wild. I was so awkward. Like, I didn't want to talk. I wasn't sure what to say. And I was like, yeah, this is actually kind of what it is for a lot of us at conferences. And he's like, you would not believe this other thing that happened. So I'm sitting in this group, and the man in my group refused to answer the 4th question. And then in the 3rd question, he starts explaining to this woman something that she clearly knew. It was so unnecessary. He's just like going on and on and on, explaining this thing. And I'm just like, what is happening right now? Have you ever seen this? Like, have you ever heard of it? It was just the most bizarre thing. And I was like, are you asking me if I've ever seen a man unnecessarily explain something to a woman Have I ever seen mansplaining? And he's like, oh my God, I've heard that term 1,000 times, but I never understood. No, that's what it was. That's what it was. It was mansplaining. And the thing is, he was 100%, like, he was telling 100% the truth. He'd heard mansplaining 1,000 times. But until you see it and feel it, and to Chris's point, like, until you're able, like, it seems like, of course I would know mansplaining. No, you wouldn't, because we've seen it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years and we don't think about it. But in that moment, he saw it, and I was like, if you could do one thing for me, to Chris's point, the next time you're on a call and somebody's mansplaining to a woman, please don't make her be the one to shut it down. If you shut it down, that's the best allyship that you could do. Just shut it down, right? And so, like, these are the things, this is why I love, we personally invite men to every single one of our events. They are our best, strongest allies. And you know what the women messaged me? When Jono posted, when all the men posted, all of the women messaged me silently and said, it is the nicest thing not to have to fight this alone. I can't even tell you how nice it is not to have to do this alone. So to the men out there, to the girl dads, sisters, brothers, whatever, to the extent that you can help us with this, you have no idea how invaluable you are to this fight. Without you, we will not solve the gender gap.
Tom's about to open his heart.
Trump. You want to know Trump?
Really, really quick question. What's the end goal? Is it every industry 50-50?
No, no. I don't have the lifespan or energy for that. I'm
no,
just,
but if you could click your fingers and tomorrow you'd solve the problem, what would it be?
no, because realistically, so it's a nuanced answer, because you're asking about quotas, sort of, right? Like, no?
Like, what's the right
Oh,
gap?
I don't think there's a right number, because realistically, the reason why women aren't, this is like, I know this is recorded, but it's Chatham House, right? In the United States, we have a phenomenon in the last 5 years where we have all gender bathrooms popping up everywhere. And I said to one of my LGBT friends, I was like, I really wish the women could get the trans community into a room and say, teach us Obi-Wan, because in less than 5 years, you've managed to get all gender bathrooms globally being built, being reconstructed. I have to go into a bathroom with a curtain where there's urinals, and hopefully I don't see some guy out there, because now we're all in bathrooms together, right? What they have achieved in less than 5 years is amazing. But that's because they are united, unified, and they are just machines in their goal for equality. Not all women want equality. I can't do anything about that. So I don't know that we'll ever get to 50-50, because not every single woman wants to be equal to a man, and not every single woman wants the things that we want. But for the women who want it, and if it was 30% of the population who wanted to be treated equally, I would just ask that for the ones who want equality, that we be given it. And I don't know what that percentage is. And I don't know what that percentage will be in the future, but I will tell you, having met some women who are 20 and 30 and 15 and 10, I think they're going to fight a lot harder than previous generations did. And that's what gives me hope that it'll take less time. And really quickly, I know I'm the only thing keeping you from booze and networking, and I'm sorry. But your Trump question and the America thing, strangely, if you follow politics in the United States, historically Democrats have been shitty for innovation. In fact, they call it predatory innovation by default. And there are a lot of young people in the United States who are into crypto that politicians are not paying attention to. I had a friend who was a lobbyist that I told about this. She wasn't paying attention. She thought I was lying. We went to a bar. She was with her 18-year-old nephew. We get to the bar, and I said, she told him what I do, and he's like, oh, what do you have, ETH, Bitcoin? Like, what do you self-hosted wallets? Like, and her face, I was like, I told you. What's happening in America right now is so wildly bad, but the reality is if the Republicans win, if Trump wins, like, if all you're looking at is crypto, historically Republicans are better for innovation. Interestingly, though, right now, what America's really terrible at is doing anything for its greater good, and acknowledging that crypto and stable coins are the only thing that will prevent de-dollarization is like a battle that some of us are fighting very, very hard, because the US dollar does not have value other than like being the global reserve currency. It's the lowest it's ever been in 60 years. It's fallen below 60%, and you have a basket of digital currencies, CBDCs, BRICS. You have all of these things that are like a shotgun of like 1,000 pellets that are eroding dollar dominance. We might not even have sanctions in 5 to 10 years, because if companies opt out of using the US dollar system, what are you going to sanction them from? Where is the US hegemony if you can't sanction people from the US dollar system? Are you just going to nuke them into compliance with your massive military that you spent all that money on, but didn't make it computer science ready so that Russian 12-year-olds and 9-year-old Chinese people can hack it from their living room? These are the problems that we are going to face in the next 10 years. So if you want to talk about the direction that America's going, I will be drinking after this. And I would encourage you to join me if that is your question, Tom.
No, we're done. No, we're done. No, it's sorry, guys.
Save it for drinks, please,
Save
because
it for
it's
drinks.
a conversation that
Otherwise,
needs alcohol.
I will not get out of here because I have to close up. So I really appreciate the enthusiasm. Make America crypto again. We heard it here. And save your questions for later. Keep this energy, please. But please let me go. Thank you. All right, next slide, Chris. Final announcements, sponsors. Yep, just leave it down there. That's fine. QR code for BitGet. 5, 4, 3, 2. Next QR code for Stables. 5, 4, 3. All right, next QR code. This is our Discord. This is everything. There's a YouTube page, the newsletters, the website. Everything is there. There's probably more that we could do. There's probably more that we shouldn't do. I don't know. You guys help me out. This is a community thing. I really appreciate everyone that came in late. Block owners here, James, Charlie, put your hands up. Another 2 of our amazing sponsors here. You'll see them on stage as well. You've seen them on podcasts too. So definitely there's a lot of great people in here. Hands up my uni students that are here. Where are the uni students? Is it this row here? Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Give them a clap. Thank you. You know, without you guys, we'd just be talking amongst ourselves in a big circle. So it's nice that you guys came and I dropped my phone. So anyways, on that note, time to get out of here. If you head over there, we'll do some more networking and then I'll eventually kick you all out. Thank you.